Boy and His Blob, Trouble in Blobolonia was an adventure puzzle game designed by Imagineering that had the very innovative idea of a blob following around a boy and eating jelly beans that transformed into different useful objects like trampolines and ladders. The game was quite successful, so successful in fact that it got a sequel on the original Game Boy called Rescue of Princess Blobette, and another many years later on the PC, Wii, PS3 and 4, Xbox One and PS Vita, simply called A Boy and His Blob, designed by WayForward Technologies. The point of this video is to go over the pros and cons of each iteration to decide which one is ultimately the better game. I'll be comparing Trouble in Blobolonia and the modern sequel, leaving out Rescue of Princess Blobette because it's incredibly similar to the NES game, even down to the music. So, without further ado, let's begin. What strikes me as soon as I open Trouble in Blobolonia is that this title is obviously alluding to Indiana Jones. The color scheme, music, and fonts all point to it. It's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just very prominent. The game starts outside the protagonist's house, accompanied by a very droning 8-second loop of music that very quickly gets on my nerves. You are a very under-detailed boy, especially compared to the background, accompanied by... Oh god, what is that thing? I have a feeling the designers meant for the blob to have a cute look, but to me he really just looks like a terrifying demonic bowling pin. Honestly though, I'm really confused by the inconsistency in the graphics. The boy looks incredibly bland compared to the house, backdrop, and even the dirt. I guess some mysteries are just better left unsolved. Now this is where the game's true innovation comes to light. Never before had a game tried something this new and abnormal and been successful. The boy throws a jelly bean to the blob, who eats it, and transforms into an object corresponding to the flavor in a charming pun. For example, lime transforms him into a key, tangerine transforms him into a trampoline, vanilla into an umbrella, and so on. It seems that the main purpose of this cave is avoiding enemies and solving puzzles in order to collect treasure. For what purpose? I have no idea, but it's there so it must be collected, right? There's one significant gameplay flaw that needs to be mentioned. The controls. The character honestly moves like everything is made of ice, and in a game where positioning yourself to throw beans is so important, this is a big problem. It might be fixed if you could jump in order to reposition yourself properly, but there's no way to jump, and even though that doesn't matter a huge amount, it kinda ticks me off. One cool little feature this game has is the ability to remember the blob's position, even when he's on a different screen, which is impressive considering the system limitations of the NES. This spelunking lasts a few minutes longer until you come across a body of underground water. Idiotic misdirecting quit trying to be funny? Check. This underwater section is by far the least enjoyable part of the game. The bubble controls like a reverse jetpack joyride, going down when you press down and up when you release. The reason that this part sucks is that it's almost as slippery as the above ground portion, and you need to try and collect treasure along the walls of the cave. If the bubble touches the wall though, you die and lose one of your 5 precious lives. After struggling through the underwater portion, you have to make your way back to the surface, making use of ladders and trampolines, where Blob pushes through a manhole back to the street where you begin. From there, you go to a grocery store, and assuming you collected enough treasure, buy a plethora of vitamins, and by that I mean 3, which serve as different types of ammunition for Blob's Vitoblaster form, which is basically a gun. After making your purchases, you can transform Blob into a rocket and blast off to a planet, which is presumably Blobolonia. You play through the planet with much of the same puzzle-solving gameplay as before, until you get to a factory. While playing through this factory, you get to a room where the blob is locked in a cage next to an evil-looking figure. If you transform the blob into a jack, you can knock over a bottle of vitamins and kill the figure. This cuts to the protagonist standing on a stage in front of all of Blobolonia, who, in a very anticlimactic NES manner, hail the boy and his blob as heroes, where the game promptly ends. Trouble on Blobolonia is an incredibly short game. I played through it in about 40 minutes. But that does not mean it's bad. For a game made in 1989, it has an amazing amount of imagination, innovation, and I don't use this word lightly, but passion. Although this game is wonderful, let's see how well it can hold itself against the modern iteration for the PC. But in order to do that, we'll have to travel to the future. It's 2009. Yeah, nothing really happened. I mean, I guess Michael Jackson died, so there's that. The first thing that stands out is the beautiful design, taking on a style similar to an animated film like Winnie the Pooh, and it fits the game perfectly. Of course, this is due to the vast system upgrade, but both the boy and the blob have come incredibly far stylistically. They've made the impressive transition from creepy to downright adorable, especially when you press A. Duh. Instead of a continuous journey like the previous game, this one is set up in levels reminiscent of a Super Mario Bros. Game, complete with 3 secret treasures for that sweet sense of completion. For each level you can collect up to 3 treasures, each creating a piece of an artifact in the level hub, which is a cool incentive to 100% the game, but as you can see I'm not really into that, so let's just move on. This game, I have to say, is incredibly atmospheric. The amazing visual design tied with a beautiful orchestral soundtrack takes my breath away. It's definitely a game I would play to unwind after a long day and just relax, but enough of that. Is the game good? Yeah. The controls have obviously taken a turn for the better, smooth and concise instead of a slippery mess, and for the love of God, I've never been more grateful for a jump button. The gameplay itself is just a reimagining of that from the NES game, but with modern graphics in mind. For example, the umbrella of the other game has been changed to a parachute, making for interesting level design. Another nice yet subtle change made in this game is that you don't have to have the blob catch the jelly bean to make him transform. He instead goes to wherever you throw it and eats it there. This makes positioning exactly where you want the blob to be just that much easier. One downside to this game is that it doesn't have any apparent story. Trouble on Blob didn't have much of one either, granted, but it had an outline of one, and a plot is a plot no matter how simple. However, I can't accurately comment on the story of this game for reasons I'll explain in a couple of minutes. The enemies are all black blobs. Sometimes they are simply as obstacles, but often they also come into play as solutions to puzzles. This is a feature I really love, as it makes the player think that much harder on how to solve a puzzle. Ah crap, I died. Just a minute. So sad! After the boy dies, the blob hops up to him and just looks expecting. Despite my infinite lives, I want to avoid death purely due to this animation, because if I watch it too much, I think I might die of heartbreak. I finally got to a level that looked a little different from the others. A red sky with menacing driving music in the background. The level itself isn't that long, but once you finish it, you come face to face with a Cobra boss, who you defeat with carefully placed anvils and pitfalls. Once it dies, you continue on to a new level hub, essentially a new world. So many possibilities, so many potential new puzzles and levels, and that's all I have time for. Sorry, but I was on a really strict time constraint this week, so I could only judge this game off of the first world. And that's what I meant by I couldn't accurately judge the story. There's no noticeable story in World 1, but that's no reason to say that nothing won't pop up later in the game. Anyway, with that out of the way, I'll give you my final results. Both games are amazing, imaginative, creative, and innovative. But the modern iteration is going to have to take my favor, simply because it has such an amazing soundtrack and such amazing visuals, it just takes my breath away. And honestly, the concise controls and really smooth playstyle is really what gave this game the edge to me. Not to say Trouble in Blobolonia is a bad game by any means, it's a wonderful game, but I feel like the modern iteration of the game is more worth your while at this point. And now I will just kind of sit back, relax, and await the onslaught of hate from all the NES fanboys out there. Until next time, KopperKoala. See you guys. Hey guys, and thanks for watching my latest KopperKoala overview. If you liked it, do what any sensible person would do and just leave a like on the video. If you really liked it, go and watch the other two that I made on Amagon and Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker. If you really like the stuff that I do on this channel, leave a subscribe so you can be updated with all the videos I put out. With that all being said, till next time, KopperKoala.